I know we mentioned it on the show before, but the Huskies get their first road win over a top 25 team since 2014. After the game, head coach Dan Hurley of UConn asked about this, and he said, quote, "We sucked for years. And then when I took over the job, there was no portal, so you had to rebuild something slowly. But here they are, defending national champions. But that is a hell of a long streak that not a lot of people would have realized. 10 full years."
Right, and it's a bit of an anomaly because this is a team that won the NCAA title. So it's not like they can't play away from home. It's just one of those things that I guess just kind of falls through the crack. And I think it also is a testament to how good their conference has been. But back to this game, I think we both would have been on UConn here. Tyler Kolek missing for Marquette. He is a big part of their offense and one of their best players. So it felt like UConn was the way for both of us. This was a palatable number. This is a UConn team that is very hard to go against. Like, Jenks, every time I talk to somebody who's like pretty into college basketball, they're like, yeah, UConn's going to win it all again. And by the numbers, I totally get it. I'm not going to say that they're stupid because obviously they have looked like the most dominant team in college basketball. But how difficult is it to repeat as NCAA champions? It feels like this is one of the hardest sports to repeat in March Madness.
Oh, no question, because not only do you need stellar play, you also have to have some sort of luck along the way, maybe no injuries. And also to win that many games in a row, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're due for an off shooting night, or maybe your star player doesn't play so well. So you can still be the best team in the country, but have one bad game and then boom, you're done. And sometimes that bad game comes early on. There's also pressure involved. Then you're playing at neutral sites, which you're not really used to. There have been 4 back-to-back national champions, but we haven't seen one since Florida did it in 2006 and 2007. So you are spot on. It is exceptionally difficult to do.
Yeah, so maybe I'm not going to be putting my money. Also, they are the favorites. Like, you're not getting any value on UConn right now. So maybe you want to take them on the spread in some of these games. Maybe that's the way to do it, just probably not in the futures market. But I feel like there is something to being a little cautious when just like immediately promoting some of these guys all the way to the big leagues. And a lot for me is confidence. I don't think you want to shake a guy's confidence because once you send him to the majors and say if he struggles, it's really hard to get that confidence back. So I think you have to be very careful with some of these guys because think about it. What is it, a $6 million investment? Like, this guy did not come cheap out of LSU. So I get what they're doing. He's only been in pro ball for 6 2/3 inning is what this article is saying. So I think people need to pump the brakes. Baseball works differently than just about any other sport when it comes to the minors and the majors. So I think people need to chill with Paul Skenes.
I think that's a great point, and certainly you know that better than I do because you've lived it, you've watched it happen. But yes, you're exactly right. The natural inclination is to say, oh, just put this guy in the majors, put this guy in the majors. Baseball is different in that way. And, baseball is so technical, particularly when you talk about a pitcher. Sometimes, as you know, you'll see a pitcher just go back down to the minors just to get right and sort of work on some things, and then they're back up again. So it's unlike any other sport in that respect. They're not going to send some dude down to the G League for like 3 games and help him get his shooting stroke back and then send him back to the NBA. It's just different because baseball is a different type of sport, obviously. So I think this is smart too. And I know Paul Skenes, listening to him, he wants to play immediately. He says he understands it. He's ready to go. But ultimately, when you have someone who is this talented, it's certainly not going to hurt him to start him off a little bit slow and let him acclimate because even the best of the best have had to do it.
Yeah. And also, I think it's proof that the mental game of baseball is a big thing as well because baseball is such a game of failure too. So I think it takes a while for guys to develop kind of that toughness to be knocked around a bit. Like, so many people fail in baseball. Even the best of the best have their off days. So when you have somebody who comes from a program that is so dominating, I think about this too. Like, think about going from LSU, where this is probably the best place to play college baseball. You have all kinds of fans. You have NIL money now. Wasn't this guy dating Livy Doon? or whatever her name is, like the TikTok gymnast. Like he had it made at LSU. So you go to the minor leagues and you're playing in like Altoona or wherever. Like it is a culture shock. Like, and you're not going to have people fawning over you all the time. So if you start to struggle, you know, you don't have 20,000 fans at your games. I think that is an aspect that you kind of have to overcome as well.
Is there a player or two that you keep going back to that maybe is under the radar? It doesn't have to be tonight because we know Bradley Beal, we know Michael Porter Jr., but sometimes you can find the value on the players that maybe we're not paying attention to, and they're doing something on a regular basis that is profitable.
We in the Discord that I'm in, we'll find a guy that has had some success in short spurts. I'll use Jonathan Kuminga. Jonathan Kuminga in December into January, extremely profitable. And then the books finally caught up and adjusted his lines. All right, let's back off him. There's no more value there. They're not undervaluing him anymore. Then there's a trade in Toronto, and we take a look at Emmanuel Quickley and his assists. His assist line was 3.5, 4.5. That's not right. So we hammered Emmanuel Quickley for about 4 or 5 games. The book caught up. His line went to 6.5 or 5.5, juiced all the way up. All right, let's back off him. The Charlotte Hornets, after that trade where they made a push for the backcourt of the Thunder, then they bring in a Grant Williams. The team looked completely different, and they're still getting 11 points, and they're the Charlotte Hornets, but they're covering. So you try to get on something early. You ride it as long as you can, and then the books usually catch up 3-4 games. You get off it, you find the next thing. So I'm looking for the next guy now. I'm not sure who it may be, but there's always an edge. There's always an angle. You ride it for as long as you can, and eventually the smart people who make the lines will catch up. Hopefully you can get some money before then, though.
It felt like Tyrese Halliburton was that guy earlier in the season where they couldn't make the numbers high enough for some of his assists. Let me ask you something, because I hear you talking about a lot of numbers and a lot of really analytical things. Do you ever bet on player props just based on narratives? It feels like the NBA is probably the most popular sport for this, whether it's a revenge spot or a guy who's playing on his birthday. Do you believe in these angles?
I do sometimes. I mean, they hold some merit, they hold some value. I wouldn't do the entire handicap around that, but if we can pair a couple things together, some of the numbers along with some of the narrative. Birthday's one, hometown is another. Whenever they return home, because you got to think about it, they're buying tickets for their family and friends. Their family and friends are showing up for them to play. You're going to put on a show. Who traded for them? Who traded against them? Harden against the Rockets is one the other night. There's also the Harden strip club narrative. How does he perform in Atlanta versus Miami? That was you guys laugh. That was a real thing for a couple of years when he was in Houston. So it's not all numbers and data. There's a little bit extra to it. And then you can look at how many games has it been? Is this guy in his 4th game in 5 days? I know that's kind of narrative driven, but those are weak knees. If you got weak knees, you're probably not shooting your shots as well. That may be some more rebounding opportunities for the other team. It sounds like a lot. I always think it's more of an art than a science when it comes to player prop handicapping.